Hello everyone, welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the NBA DFS Core Pick video for today, Friday, March 15th. If you're joining me for the very first time, this is how today's video will be structured. We'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they ultimately ended up turning out. Then after that, we'll get moved over to RotoWire, talk about the injuries. It's going to be a 6-game main slate on DraftKings and a 5-game main slate on FanDuel for tonight. So a little bit of difference there, just one game difference though, which will be the Atlanta Hawks and the Utah Jazz game. And then after that, we'll get moved over to DraftKings and FanDuel to talk about my core picks for both sites. It's going to be one player at each position. So point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. So on the DraftKings side, at point guard, we had Kyrie Irving, $8,400, looking for at least 42. Got to 64.5, so he was a really good hit on yesterday's slate. At shooting guard, went with Alex Caruso, $5,500, looking for at least 28 out. Got to 36.75, so he was a good hit as well. And that's kind of where it ended, unfortunately. So Kevin Durant, $9,500, looking for at least 48 out of him. Got to 26.25, so he was a mess, mainly scoring dependent yesterday. He had 15 points in the first half, then scored 5 the rest of the game. So not a good day for him whatsoever. Really unfortunate there. And then at power forward, Jabari Smith Jr., $6,600, was looking for 33 out. Still in that starting center spot with no Alfred Sengun out there. Just not a real good day for him yesterday. He only played 26 minutes. Looks like he might have been in a little bit of foul trouble maybe. So kind of unfortunate there, but only ended up with 24.25. And then at center, we had Chet Holmgren, $7,200 in a pretty attractive matchup versus Dallas Mavericks yesterday, looking for 36 out. Only got 27.5, so he was a mess, unfortunately. And he had 11 points, 8 rebounds. Didn't do a whole heck of a lot else, so just kind of unfortunate there. So not the greatest day on DraftKings overall. Maybe if you got to like some Bones Highland, some other good guys yesterday, then maybe you had an okay day, but a little bit tougher just in general. And then on the FanDuel side, we had Bones Highland at point guard, $4,100. Looking for 21 out, got to 50.5, so he was a really good hit on yesterday's slate, starting in place of James Harden. At shooting guard, we had Alex Caruso, $5,800, looking for at least 29 out, got to 35.6, so he was a hit on FanDuel as well. And then once again, we had Kevin Durant, $10,000 at small forward. Thought it was going to be a really good day for him overall, looking for at least 50 out of him. Got to half of that, so 25.1, so he was a really big miss once again, mainly just scoring yesterday and really didn't do much in the second half. And then once again, we were all in on Jabari Smith Jr., $7,100, looking for 36 out, got 22.5. So he was unfortunately a mess on FanDuel as well. And then last but not least, we had Al Horford at $5,900, looking for at least 30 out, got to 43.1. So he was a really good hit on yesterday's slates. So on FanDuel, a little bit hit or miss in terms of the core. If you had some other good picks, you still had a pretty decent chance of cashing yesterday, despite Kevin Durant really hurting us. I got to a lot of Paul George alongside Kevin Durant, so that kind of paid off in a big way. If you had some other value plays that really paid off, then you really had the chance of cashing, but a little bit tougher slate yesterday, especially with Kevin Durant just really not paying off overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to RotoWire and talk about those injuries in play for tonight's slate. So there are 6 games in total, 6-game main slate over on DraftKings, 5 games on FanDuel. 2 teams on the back-to-back tonight, which will be the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Clippers. So we'll see what their injury reports look like as the day moves along. We're going to start off with the Miami Heat, who are with Tyler Hero and Kevin Love once again. And then we have Bam Adebayo listed as probable due to back contusion. So no real changes here for this Miami Heat team overall. And then for the Detroit Pistons, we have Quinn Grimes and Asir Thompson, both out for tonight's game. And then Cade Cunningham is listed as questionable play tonight. So if he's unable to go, it'd probably be a pretty big bump up for a guy like Jaden Ivey. And then it would be pretty interesting to see who enters the starting lineup as kind of that 5th starter overall tonight, if that is the case, because that's something we really haven't seen lately. And then we move over to the Phoenix Suns. They're on the back-to-back once again, so we'll see what their injury report looks like as the day moves along. For the Charlotte Hornets, we got LaMelo Ball, Seth Curry, Cody Martin, Bryce McGowan, and Mark Williams all listed as out once again. So we should see a similar starting lineup to the last time out. And they only ended up playing 3 guys off the bench, which were bigger guys too. So it was Grant Williams, Alexei Povashevsky, and Davis Bertans. So pretty big Hornets team last time out. We'll see if they maintain that similar type of rotation. But not a ton of value here, but some guys you can definitely take some shots on. Then for the Orlando Magic, they appear to be all the way healthy at this point in time. And then on the opposite side of that game, we got the Toronto Raptors, who are without Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Chris Boucher, DJ Carton, and Jakob Poeltl once again. And then Gary Trent Jr. is listed as questionable to play tonight, so we'll see ultimately whether or not he's good to go tonight or not. Then we move down to the Clippers, who are also on the back-to-back. Yesterday, we did see James Harden miss. We'll see if one of their star players ultimately ends up sitting for tonight's game as well. And then on the Pelicans side, we just got Dyson Daniels. This is out. Been dealing with that knee injury. I think it's a meniscus, so he's going to be out for a little while still. And then we move over to the Denver Nuggets. Cam Carr's been out all season with that ACL surgery, so there are no new changes for the Nuggets. And then on the Spurs side, they just have Cedi Osman out once again, so it should be pretty similar to their more recent games. Then we move down to Atlanta Hawks, who are without Kobe Buffkin, Onyeka Okongwu, and Trae Young. And then they have Jalen Johnson listed as questionable due to an ankle injury, and Bogdan Bogdanovic listed as questionable due to an illness. So we'll see what the starting lineup looks like kind of as the day moves along. Unfortunately, it's the last game of the night. There could be a little bit of value here, but some of these value guys really aren't that great of fantasy point per minute guys just in general. So you can take some shots on Atlanta. Probably going to stay away from those guys that are kind of questionable at this point in time. Mainly we'll be getting to like DeJounte Murray and Clint Capella myself personally tonight. Then for the Utah Jazz, we have Jordan Clarkson, Chris Dunn, and Lauri Markkanen. All this is out for tonight's game, and then Taylor Hendricks listed as questionable, so we'll see whether or not he is ultimately back tonight or not. But with that being said, that's a quick little rundown on all the injuries for tonight's games. As always, if there are any injury updates that do come out throughout the day, I will be posting them down in the comments below, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. But with that being said, we'll get moving over to DraftKings and talk about my core picks over there. So we're going to start off at the point guard position with Keontae George for the Utah Jazz, $6,600. Looking for 33 fantasy points out of him. Good pace-up spot tonight for the Atlanta Hawks. And he's been playing really well as of late. Obviously, no Lauri Markkanen, no Jordan Clarkson, no Chris Dunn. There is going to be a lot of opportunities for him once again tonight. Currently, I'm projected for 36 fantasy points, but definitely does have some pretty strong upside for more, as we've seen in his two most recent games. Then we moved down to the shooting guard position, which was a position that didn't really stand out to me today overall. So ultimately, for me, it came down to Gary Harris at $4,000, just a cheap value option. There's probably going to be somebody throughout the day that could replace him here. Or Duncan Robinson, who was $5,100 going against the Detroit Pistons in a favorable matchup. So ultimately ended up on Gary Harris here. He's $4,000. You're looking for 20 points on him. He's played pretty solid minutes as of late. Some of those games he's getting you 20 points. Other games not getting you too much. So kind of a little bit of a balancing act there. Decent matchup versus the Toronto Raptors. Should be a favorable one for him to at least be out there on the court. So if he does a little bit of something tonight, could look pretty well. Obviously, if you don't want to go with him, you want to go with Duncan Robinson instead, you could definitely do that as well. But this is going to be kind of whatever value pick ultimately ends up popping up throughout the day. Then at small forward, we're going to go with Bruce Brown Jr. for the Toronto Raptors, $5,900, looking for $2,930 out of him. And there's no RJ Barrett once again tonight for the Toronto Raptors, so I would assume that he's in that starting lineup once again, playing pretty sizable minutes, which he's done his 2 games that he's been back. And he's had over 30 DraftKings points in both those games, so I think that's a pretty fair projection for him today. Currently, I'm projected for about 30 to 31. Definitely does have some upside for more. A little bit of downside for less. Not the greatest matchup in the world versus the Orlando Magic, but if they keep this game close, plays a ton of minutes, a guy that can do a little bit of everything and really help us out from a DFS perspective. Then at power forward, we're going back to Jonathan Isaac once again today, $3,700, looking for 19 fantasy points. And he's been up over 20, I think it's the last 4 games now. So just kind of a solid, safe option here. Just a guy that's super cheap, getting us 20 points. Not too much to write home about here. Maybe some other value plays do open up throughout the day and kind of knock him off. But at least early on, looks like a cheap guy that we can kind of take advantage of. And then last but not least, at that center position, we're going with Clint Capella, $6,300, looking for 31, 32 out of him. He's averaging 30 so far in the season. Been playing really well as of late, so definitely do like him once again tonight. Currently, I'm projected for 33. Definitely does have some upside for more, though, as well. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you have $23,500 remaining, just over $7,800 per player. So a good amount of money left over, whether you want to pay up for kind of your star player. Nikola Jokic is obviously way at the top ahead of everybody else. But if you want to go to him, you want to go to some of these other strong players, heck, even going back to Kevin Durant tonight versus the Charlotte Hornets, a lot of people probably aren't going to want to go there, but could be a little bit of a leverage play just because of how poorly he performed yesterday. But at the same time, could go with a little bit more balanced lineup as well, whether you want to get a couple of 8K guys there and then kind of pay down at one of the other spots. Definitely a lot of different ways that we can approach tonight's slate overall. Should make for a pretty interesting one overall. But with that being said, we'll get moved over to FanDuel and talk about my core picks over there as well. So on the FanDuel side, everybody that I kind of have listed is just kind of like, this is what we need out of them for their price tag, and this is kind of what I have them projected for. So a pretty safe day, I would say, but not a lot of excitement, not a lot of upside. So we're going to start off at the point guard position with Vasilij Micic for the Charlotte Hornets. He is $6,000, looking for 30 out of him, but in that starting lineup, operating in that point guard role. Playing really well as of late, though, coming off a really, really strong performance. So he does have a little bit of upside there. But at this point in time, I currently have him projected right around that 30 fantasy points tonight. Although the Phoenix Suns have been a really good matchup for opposing point guards so far this year and kind of as of late. So wouldn't be surprised if he does give us a little bit of upside tonight, but then always could have a little bit of downside at the same time, especially if he's not shooting the ball the greatest. But there is going to be a lot of opportunities in terms of like assist and steals for him once again tonight. Then at shooting guard, we're going to go with Gary Harris. Same story as over on DraftKings. I was between Gary Harris and Duncan Robinson. Shooting guard is just not the most appealing for me today overall. Ultimately ended up on Gary Harris. It's just kind of the cheaper option. $4,100, so you're looking for 20, 21 out of him. Currently I'm projected for about 20 tonight. Should be out there on the court getting solid minutes. Once again, it is a decent matchup against the Toronto Raptors. If he's going out there, if he's doing just a little bit of anything, he's going to look pretty good overall tonight. Like I said on DraftKings, a lot of these games, he's been getting the minutes. Some games he'll get you 20 points. Some games he'll get you like 8 points. So a little bit of risk there, especially for one of these cheaper guys just in general. Then at small forward, we're going with Bruce Brown Jr. once again, $5,900. RJ Barrett's not going to be out there, so he should be in that starting lineup once again tonight. Should be a matchup where he does get a bunch of minutes, since that's pretty much what he's been doing since he's been back for 2 games from his injury. You're looking for 29, 30 out of him. Currently, I'm projected for about 30 to 31 tonight. He's a guy that can do a little bit of everything, so that helps give us a pretty safe floor overall for tonight. Then at power forward, we're going right back to Grant Williams, $5,600, looking for 28 fantasy points on him. It's a pretty similar story to what we heard out of him, in their kind of recent games. We'll see what he does tonight. He's probably going to be playing a little bit more of that 4 spot, maybe alongside Nick Richards at times, with him guarding Kevin Durant a little bit more often in this game, which could go really well. It could go really poorly for him. We'll just kind of have to see how that all plays out. Sometimes in these games when he's been coming off the bench, though, he's been actually scoring the ball a little bit better, but that starting lineup had just a little bit more safety. I'm kind of rambling on a little bit here about Grant Williams, but just a really safe play overall today, $5,600. Like I said, looking for 28. Currently I'm projected for 28. There is some upside for a little more, but there is some downside for less at the same time as well. Then last but not least, at that center position, we're going with the highest priced player on the slate, Nikola Jokic, $12,000. Center options didn't really stand out to me too much today overall, so ultimately end up on Nikola Jokic. Favorable matchup versus San Antonio Spurs. It's a pace-up one just in general. Should be able to have his way with Victor Wembanyama more times than not, so would not be surprised if Nikola Jokic has a pretty big performance tonight. Looking for 60 averaging about 58 so far in the season. Currently I'm projected for about 61, 62, but definitely does have some pretty strong upside for more at the same time as well. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do currently have listed here, you have $26,400 remaining, $6,600 per player, so looking a little bit more like a balanced build type of day. Ultimately, we'll see what other value does pop up throughout the day. Kind of unfortunate on the FanDuel side that we don't have that Utah Jazz and Atlanta Hawks game just in general, because that is one that does have some decent values, especially as we start off the day. But at the same time, we'll make up for some values, especially as the day moves along, more likely than not. But with that being said, these are my core picks for both FanDuel and DraftKings for today, March 15th. As always, if you have any questions related to NBA DFS, be sure to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. I do ask that you please note whether those questions are more FanDuel or DraftKings specific, just so I can best help you as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then, as always, I'll be posting all the injury updates down in the comments below, as well as the starting lineups as they do get announced throughout the night. And then, as always, I will have my updated core coming out probably about 20 to 30 minutes prior to lock tonight, which will be left as a pinned comment. If there's any other additional changes after that point in time, I will leave them as a reply to that pinned comment as well. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, or have yet to subscribe, please consider doing so. Definitely would appreciate it. It helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we just got NBA DFS going on in terms of the core pick videos Monday through Friday. But coming up at the very end of the month, we'll be having some MLB DFS as well as some UFL DFS. So definitely be sure to check that out if that's something you're into as well. If you're not quite into it right now at this point in time, you just want to check it out, learn a little bit more about it, definitely would welcome you to do that as well. And then if you have any other questions related to that, feel free to drop those down in the comment sections of those videos, and I'd be more than happy to help you with that process as well. And then last but not least, if you're interested in sports betting, if you're interested in prop betting whatsoever, be sure to check out the links and promo codes down in the description below for BetUS, Parlay Play, and Prize Picks. If you are a brand new user to any one of those three sites, you sign up, you make your initial deposit, you'll get a first match deposit bonus. For Prize Picks and Parlay Play, it's a 100% match up to $100 on your initial deposit. And then for BetUS, it's a 125% match on your initial deposit up to $2,500. So some pretty great opportunities to be had out there. And then with that being said, if you have any other additional questions related to that whatsoever, feel free to drop them down in the comments below or reach out to me on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport and be more than happy to help you with that process as well. But with that being said, that's all that I truly have for today's video. Definitely do appreciate each and every one of you checking it out. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope that each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in NBA DFS tonight.